guys here through spring ball. Want to see a bunch of competition and growth here as we go through summer.
Two quick things. You mentioned a line. Can you see guys, especially in scrimmage situations, knowing where to be a lot more than last year, thus maybe playing faster? You seeing that?
Yeah, I think alignment is one thing, but then also your fits off of that is something that we got to continue to grow in. And you know, at the end of the day, you want to be perfect in those things, right? One guy creates a vertical seam, and that's a huge play. And you know, you got to limit plays. Tackle them for what the gain should be, and find a way to create, you know, third and long situations. If you look back at a year ago, there's a lot of things that we got to be better: offense, defense, special teams. Defensively, one of the things is being really good in third and long situations. We created some zero and negative plays. Got to be better in those known passing situations.
How have you guys protected the football offensively, I guess, versus creating turnovers on the other side?
Yeah, you know, for me and inside of our program, the effort and the strain that you play with is the number one thing that you got to have. If you don't play harder than your opponent, very few times you're going to have an opportunity to win. The ball is the second measuring point for us. Offensively, have done a really pretty good job of taking care of it. Defensively, want to see us get more rips, more punches, and ultimately more tips on the ball and find a way to create more turnovers. It's not that we're not emphasizing it. It's the first thing we do in every single practice. You know, the media, you guys see us. That's how we start our day. Just got to be a point of emphasis as we continue to go forward.
Yeah, Coach Martinez talked about how big Jalen and Trayvon's leadership has been in that DB room. What have you seen from those guys from a leadership standpoint this spring?
Two guys that have completely thrust themselves forward. They recognize that it's needed, the leadership inside of that room and on the defense side of the football. They recognize and accepted that they have a role to play in that. They've embraced it. They've grown. You know, during the offseason, that was a point of emphasis, and you know what we did every week in the lead up to spring ball. You can see and sense and feel their energy out on the practice field every day. They have grown into becoming really strong leaders for us. Need them to continue to do that. It'll be a big part of our defensive secondary playing at the level that they're capable of, and us as a defensive unit in our football team.
Couple roster questions. Everybody's going to be shoring up the roster now that spring is over in the transfer portal. What specifically, looking into the portal, will you look for in terms of how much guys can contribute or starters or in the rotation?
Yeah, you just take a look at your roster, where you're at, and what are some needs that you absolutely have to patch, and you know, starters, it's depth, it's competition at the position, it's all those things. So in today's landscape, it's so different than it used to be. You know, you got a 365-day cycle essentially to kind of evaluate your roster and try to help it out.
And how close do you hope to be or expect to be to 85 scholarships once fall camp gets here?
Yeah, you know, it just depends on where we're at as far as picking guys up in the portal, guys that we feel like can help us as we grow as a program, you know, next fall and years beyond that too.
Jimmy, then Wes.
Josh, which unit do you think improved the most from the beginning of spring to now, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, secondary, whatever?
Man, I couldn't just pick one unit. I think there's been a ton of growth in small details that matter, you know, from, you know, playing with great pad level and using our hands on the defense side of the ball to, you know, competitive strain on the offense side of the ball, being able to get pad under pad too. There's been a lot of fundamental and technique growth, and that's what spring ball should be. You know, obviously the scheme and the understanding of it, you want to grow in that, but you got to grow fundamentally, and I think our coaching staff have done a great job. Our players have been very purposeful in the way that they've worked. I really like what we've done through the first 14 days.
Josh, I imagine when you get to spring camp, there's a really long list of things that you want to get done, and as coaches try to check through and tick all those boxes. Were there some things this spring that for whatever reason you just weren't able to get done as much as you wanted to, and you're going to have to, you know, kind of kick those to the summer to camp?
I really don't. You know, there's a long list for me as a head coach, but, you know, in all three phases of the game, we revisit that, you know, every third of spring ball and make sure that we're working towards that, and that could be, you know, roster development, where your young guys are, trying to create that competition, make sure they're getting enough reps, to schemes and install some things that you want to look at that are different than what you did a year ago. Make sure that, you know, as you get into the summer and training camp, that you definitely want to maintain those things and those be a part of essentially your playbook. I think the hardest thing for us, probably this spring is just the secondary, the number of guys that were out and those guys not being out on the practice field. I do think they did a great job of staying really engaged in the process. Those guys, were assigned, they were lifting it probably early in the practice, but came out and there was a purpose and, essentially, watching a guy, critiquing him throughout the day and handing that to their position coach and the guy on the back end of the practice. I thought they were really engaged in the process. Did a great job out on the grass. Did a great job in the meeting room too.
Patrick on the right and Austin.
Couple of questions. First, with the wide receivers, you're looking to replace some playmakers there, find some new playmakers there. Do you have anybody that sort of maybe made some plays today? And how do you feel about that position group leaving spring?
Continued growth and competition at that position. Jalen Hyatt, great offseason. It's shown in the way that he's grown as a competitive playmaker at the wide receiver position. The young guys that came into our program, have transitioned into college football really well. They need to get on the back end of spring ball, revisit the installs, revisit the cut-ups, grow in their strength here as we go through the summer to give themselves an ability to come back and play at the level that we need to next fall.
In the past, you've talked about how last year Cedric Tillman over the 15 practices, 1/3, the next third, how he continued to grow. Are there any guys you're willing to say without having watched this scrimmage you just had that have made similar sort of progression over these?
Yeah, I mean,
these
if you're
practices?
talking at the wide receiver position, I think Jalen Hyatt just, and you felt that way because of the offseason that he had, the gains that he made in strength and conditioning program, like it showed in his confidence, and it showed up right away, just a physical presence about him on the field. As he has gone through spring ball, you've seen him continue to gain confidence, and I like the momentum that he's created here through spring ball.
Any other positions that you've seen similar arcs?
Yeah, I'm guy that's been here for a while, Trey Flowers. I feel like he is playing his best football by a long ways. It comes from confidence, comes in his leadership, but it's shown in the way that he has played on the football field too. Physical, been great making plays in open space when we've had scrimmage days, been great in his fits, like the growth that he's made.
Now that you basically reached the end of spring practice, are there position groups, and I'm not even going to ask you to tell me which ones because I'm sure you wouldn't, but are there positions groups that maybe you say, hey, we need to go get help in that area that you didn't think you would, or vice versa, groups that you feel like you're a little stronger at than you thought you were?
Yeah, there's certainly position groups that we feel like we got to add pieces to the roster, competition, potentially starter, in depth, and absolutely on the back end of spring ball. We've positioned ourselves where we have an opportunity to get a couple of kids that can come in and impact us. And at the same time, I think you're always looking to add elite players to your program. So we'll continue to evaluate that in the transfer portal.
And then when you scrimmaged today, I mean, it wasn't perfect conditions out there. It's still pretty wet and that type of thing. Do you like that?
Day.
Do you like that it kind of gives some element type stuff?
I do. I think that's important that your kids have an opportunity to function in those things. You get into training camp, it's going to be hot and sunny, and it's going to be like it is in September. You need some days that are going to look like October and November, and I think the opportunities that we've had, adverse elements a little bit, have been perfect. It's been a great spring here. We've been outside every day. We haven't been inside for one practice. It's been really pretty, but today a little bit of mist in the air, a little bit of wetness on the grass. It's good to handle the football on the offensive side of the football and understand how to play with great pad level and have your feet underneath you.
You talked a lot about everything being ahead of where it was last year, accountability and leadership and practice habits and all that.
As it should be.
Sure.
Sure, but I do like where we've grown from even the end of the season.
So from a year ago to now, in the next 3 or 4 months, how do you hope that progress impacts what's coming ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like a snowball that's going downhill, man. You got a chance to create momentum and speed and acceleration of the growth as you get everybody pulling the rope the same direction, everybody the same mindset. Your work habits have grown so much. I think you got a chance to really accelerate, and so that's true in, you know, our accountability and how we operate together inside of our program. It's true in the leadership in our program, and it's true in the fundamentals and techniques. In year two, they have a clear understanding of who we are, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. When we're not there and the players are running things, I think they got a real clear mission of where we're trying to get to.
How much has Taven Jackson improved from when you first got him to now the end of spring?
Yeah, today probably his best day. Just operated and functioned really well, was clean with his decision making. You know, as you go through spring ball, you know, the first 3-4 days, maybe you've gone through a lot of that with them in the lead up to spring ball, so there's some comfort there. Then you start changing some of your installs. Man, it almost becomes overload for him. I love that on the back third of spring ball. He's handled himself really well and been really composed. Finished it with the last scrimmage today the way that he did. I think, you know, that position, I said it about every position, but at the quarterback position, young players in particular, man, they got a chance to come back and be a completely different player by the time you get to summer and by the time you get to training camp. You know, we'll lift when we get done with our finished spring ball next week. But he's got a chance to go back through spring cut-ups, really evaluate just himself, how he operated and functioned, go back through the installs this summer and be a player that's really in charge and in control of all the things that are happening at the quarterback position.
Last 2 questions, Wes, then here.
Josh, you know, I guess in baseball, they always talk about sort of the middle of the field being places where you really want to be good. And I'm wondering if you talk about progress this spring for y'all, when you talk about the quarterback position, Hendon and Joe being there and Cooper at center and the 2 senior safeties, maybe Banks there at inside linebacker. When you're in at least a better position in those places up the middle, does it make things kind of flow better in 11-on-11 stuff and help people get better?
Yeah, you want to be really strong down the middle of the football field. You don't want to be weak out on the outside either. So you want to be strong everywhere. But it does matter. You know, center, quarterback, running back gives yourselves a chance to get everybody on the same page. Great decision maker. You know, somebody that can make a play with the ball in his hands. That running back has a chance to help you grow offensively, defensively. You know, your interior is really stout. Cleans your your linebackers up and lets them go flow and make plays. And your safety's got to be great in their fits and then in pass coverage too. So, you know, some of the experience that we have on both sides of the line of scrimmage, down the middle of the football field, as long as we continue to grow, have a chance to help us play at a better level next fall.
Yeah, back here in the back row. I know it's never where you want it to be, but are you pleased with the tempo of your offense, and how long does it take to get that, you know, the tempo game ready for your offense?
Yeah, I think our you know, more than, you know, how fast we're actually snapping the ball, it's just the efficiency of our players. You know, the back half of spring ball, even our young guys have operated really efficiently. You know, from ball mechanics to eyes, you know, being able to set their feet and get in the ground, and then the communication up front, you know, is a big part of that too. Is the pictures are changing late because, you know, the defensive line and second level are getting set, getting everybody on the same page. I like, you know, where we're heading in that direction. You know, the last couple of days have been the cleanest that we've had, and you know, it's got to be a point of emphasis as we continue to go.
Thank you.
Guys, appreciate it.
Happy Easter weekend. You too.